You see them, don't you? Men walking among us encased in adult frames, yet their spirits, their reactions, their very essence scream of an endless, unyielding infancy. Schopenhauer, with his unflinching gaze into the human condition, recognized this wasn't mere delayed development, but a profound, often unconscious refusal, a desperate clinging to an infantile illusion while the world demands otherwise. Why do some men remain eternal toddlers, their emotional tantrums echoing in the chambers of adult life? The explanation, as we shall find, is far more unsettling than simple immaturity. We are conditioned to equate the passage of years with the accrual of wisdom, the graying of hair with the deepening of character. But what if this is one of society's most pervasive deceptions? What if the markers of adulthood, the career, the responsibilities, the veneer of composure, are often just elaborate costumes draped over a will that has never truly outgrown the nursery, a will that still stamps its foot and demands the world conform to its immediate, unexamined desires? How many such figures walk among us, their chronological age a lie, their inner landscape a playground of ungoverned impulse? At the heart of this phenomenon, as Schopenhauer might argue, lies the tyranny of the unbridled will, that relentless, blind, striving force that animates us all. In the true adult, the intellect, though servant to this will, has learned to navigate its demands with foresight, with resignation, with an understanding of consequence. But in the adult toddler, the will remains a raw, primal force, the intellect its overwhelmed attendant, forever justifying an existence built on immediate gratification and the petulant refusal of any unwelcome truth or necessary burden. Is this not a kind of living damnation, to be forever driven by the lowest, most infantile part of oneself? Why this stubborn refusal, this turning away from the path of genuine maturation? Could it be an unconscious, terror-stricken flight from the inherent suffering and disillusionment that Schopenhauer saw as inseparable from a truly adult, conscious existence? Is the adult toddler, in his perpetual boyhood, attempting to outrun the shadow of life's inevitable burdens, its necessary sorrows, its demand for sacrifice and the painful acknowledgement of limitation, clinging instead to a fantasy of effortless being, a world where every cry is answered, every whim indulged? Imagine then the invisible chains that bind such a man, not chains forged by circumstance, but by the very architecture of his inner world. He believes himself free, perhaps even rebellious against the constraints of maturity, yet is he not the ultimate prisoner, enslaved by his own rampant desires, his own refusal to confront the complexities of existence? This is not the freedom of the eagle soaring above, but the frantic, limited liberty of a tethered animal pacing the same small circle of its unappeased needs, forever demanding, forever unfulfilled. And what of the world that reflects and at times even nurtures this arrested development? In an age that often prizes perpetual youthfulness, that bombards us with endless stimuli for immediate satisfaction, is it any wonder that the path of difficult inner growth is so often eschewed, when society itself seems to offer 1,000 distractions from the hard work of becoming? Does it not inadvertently provide fertile ground for the adult toddler to remain comfortably, disastrously himself? His refusal to mature, mirrored and sometimes even applauded by a culture that fears its own shadow. The weight of these unblossomed lives, these spirits that refuse the ascent into true adulthood, casts a long and often painful shadow, not merely upon themselves, but upon all who cross their path. Consider the relationships fractured, the responsibilities shirked, the quiet suffering inflicted upon those who must navigate the emotional debris left in the wake of such enduring infantilism. Schopenhauer would see in this not just personal failure, but a tragedy of the human spirit, a life lived in the antechamber of its own potential, forever denied the somber peace that can come only from confronting reality in its fullness. Before we delve into Schopenhauer's unsparing explanation of how this state of the adult toddler comes to be, and the subtle mechanics of this profound refusal to mature, take a moment. Look around you, perhaps even dare to look within, or recall those you have known. Where have you witnessed this phantom of perpetual childhood haunting an adult form, its demands echoing louder than reason? Share that observation, that moment of recognition in the comments below. For this uncomfortable truth, once seen, begins to lose its hidden power over us all. The surface of our world shimmers with performances, and none so perplexing, perhaps, as the man who wears the costume of adulthood, yet whose every unexamined impulse, every petulant demand, betrays the unquiet ghost of an eternal child within. You've seen him, felt him, the charisma that masks a void, the sophisticated argument that serves a primal need, the veneer of capability that shatters under the first genuine pressure. This is more than mere immaturity. It's a stubborn refusal etched into the soul, a phenomenon Schopenhauer, with his surgeon's gaze, would dissect to reveal the unsettling truth of a will arrested in its infancy. A spirit that has, in essence, declined the arduous journey of becoming. Consider the myriad ways this refusal to mature announces itself, often not in overt tantrums, though those too may erupt, but in 1,000 subtle manipulations. A chronic evasion of responsibility that is somehow always another's fault. An entitlement that views the world as a resource to be plundered for its immediate gratification. His needs are paramount, his discomforts unbearable, his perspective the only one with true legitimacy. Does a flicker of uncomfortable recognition pass through you? A memory of an interaction where you felt yourself inexplicably diminished, your own needs rendered invisible before such an overwhelming, infantile self-regard. This performance of adulthood, as Schopenhauer might observe, is a masterpiece of the world as representation, a carefully constructed illusion designed to extract from others what the infantile will demands. Yet like any poorly built facade, the cracks inevitably show, visible to any eye willing to look beyond the pleasing surface, to question the charming narrative. The promises unkept, the commitments vaporized, the sudden, inexplicable rages when desires are thwarted. These are the tremors that betray the hollow foundations, the telltale signs of a personality that has never truly shouldered the weight of its own existence. To delve into this is to confront a disquieting aspect of the human landscape, one that can leave us feeling frustrated, exploited, or simply bewildered. Why does this pattern persist? Why does the adult frame so often house such a primitive core? The initial discomfort of these questions is the gateway, pulling your attention inward, preparing you for a deeper, more unsettling exploration of a truth that many sense but few truly understand. A truth about the very nature of will, desire, and the arduous, often resisted, path to genuine maturity. At the very heart of this arrested development, as Schopenhauer would lay bare, pulses the untamed, unyielding will to live, that blind, incessant striving that is the primal engine of all beings. In the man who refuses to mature, this will has not been tempered by reason, nor disciplined by the harsh lessons of reality. It remains raw, imperious, an infantile sovereign demanding immediate homage, instant satisfaction, a world that bends to its every whim without question or delay. His intellect, far from guiding this will towards a more enlightened path, becomes its cunning servant, endlessly spinning justifications for its most primitive demands. Think of the profound, almost unshakable egoism that characterizes this state. For the adult toddler, the universe revolves around his own sensations, his own needs, his own fleeting desires. Others exist not as independent centers of being, but as instruments for his gratification or obstacles to his comfort. Schopenhauer, who saw egoism as a fundamental characteristic of the unilluminated will, would recognize in this figure the stark embodiment of a selfhood that has never learned to look beyond its own narrow horizon, a consciousness trapped in the mirror of its own immediate wants. There is a tragic irony here. The will, in its raw state, seeks life, seeks expansion, seeks satisfaction. Yet in this infantile manifestation, it becomes a force of profound self-limitation. Denied the moderating influence of a developed intellect, an intellect capable of foresight, of empathy, of grasping the complex interplay of cause and effect, the adult toddler's will drives him into endless cycles of desire, fleeting pleasure, and inevitable frustration. He is, in a sense, devoured from within by the very force that animates him, a captive of his own insatiable childlike heart. This is not simply a matter of poor choices or a lack of discipline, but something far deeper, something closer to the innate character that Schopenhauer believed was so resistant to fundamental change. The refusal to mature is often a refusal to allow the intellect its rightful role in shaping behavior, in mediating between the raw demands of the will and the complex, often unforgiving realities of the external world. It is a clinging to the illusion that one can live by impulse alone, a profound misapprehension of what it truly means to navigate the human condition. Why then this desperate, often lifelong flight from the shores of adulthood? Why cling so tenaciously to the tattered remnants of an infantile worldview when the calendar pages have long since turned? Schopenhauer would point us towards the fundamental nature of existence itself, a realm shot through with suffering, with striving, with inevitable disillusionment. To mature is to confront this truth, to accept the burdens of responsibility, the sting of limitation, the chilling awareness of one's own mortality. Is it any wonder, then, that some souls recoil from such a stark awakening? The adult toddler, in his refusal to mature, is engaged in a profound, if ultimately futile, attempt to preserve an illusion. The illusion of a world where pain can be perpetually avoided, where desires are effortlessly met, where the self exists in a bubble of protected innocence. It is a yearning for a state that, even in actual childhood, was never as pure or as carefree as nostalgia paints it. He seeks to inhabit a dream, to remain asleep to the harsher cadences of life, building around himself a fortress of denial against the encroaching shadows of reality. This is not mere cowardice, as commonly understood. It is a deeper, almost metaphysical resistance to the very terms of human existence. The weight of adult consciousness, with its capacity for profound sorrow, its awareness of cosmic indifference, its understanding of the intricate web of obligations, can feel unbearable to a will that seeks only ease and pleasure. And so he retreats, not into a physical sanctuary, but into an internal one, a carefully curated psychological space where the inconvenient truths of life are kept at bay, where the music of immediate gratification plays loud enough to drown out the whispers of consequence. This clinging to illusion, this refusal to trade the fleeting comforts of the nursery for the complex, often painful tapestry of adult experience, is a central tragedy. For in fleeing the perceived suffering of maturity, the adult toddler stumbles into a different kind of torment. The torment of a life unlived, of potential unrealized, of an endless frustrating friction with a world that will not, cannot, conform to his infantile demands. He seeks a painless existence, and in doing so ensures a shallow one, devoid of the depth and meaning that can only be forged in the fires of genuine engagement with life's totality. The consequences of this arrested voyage into adulthood ripple outwards, creating storms in teacups and tempests in relationships. Yet they also carve deep, often unseen hollows within the man himself. While he may project an air of carefree indifference or boisterous entitlement, Schopenhauer would perceive beneath it the gnawing emptiness of a spirit that has refused its own growth, a life devoid of the quiet satisfaction that comes from mastering oneself, from contributing meaningfully, from facing adversity with fortitude. His demands may be loud, but his inner world is often a place of profound, unacknowledged poverty. For those caught in the orbit of such a figure, the cost is often far more tangible, more immediately painful. There is the emotional labor of constantly managing his moods, placating his demands, tiptoeing around his easily bruised ego. There is the frustration of dealing with perpetual irresponsibility, the broken promises, the tasks undone, the burdens unfairly shifted. Like a small, dark star, the adult toddler can drain the energy, the optimism, and even the self-worth of those who try to love him, to help him, or simply to coexist with him, his infantile needs acting as a constant, silent vortex. Consider the suffering inflicted, often without conscious malice, but simply as a byproduct of his relentless self-absorption. The partnership strained or shattered, the children emotionally neglected or forced into premature adulthood themselves, the colleagues undermined, the friendships exploited. The ledger of damages can be long and heartbreaking. Schopenhauer, who understood the profound interconnectedness of suffering, would see this not merely as individual pathology, but as a node in the vast network of human misery, a will blindly inflicting its own discomfort upon the world. And what of true peace, that somber resignation to the world as it is, which Schopenhauer saw as the highest attainable state for the philosophical mind? This remains forever beyond the grasp of the man who refuses to mature. He is condemned instead to a life of constant agitation, of striving for unattainable gratifications, of railing against a reality that will not bend. His freedom is an illusion. His true state is one of perpetual, self-inflicted servitude to his own most primitive and ultimately most unsatisfying impulses. As we navigate this disquieting landscape of arrested development, guided by Schopenhauer's unsparing insights, the purpose is not to foster judgment, nor to despair at the unchangeable nature of character he so often emphasized. Rather, it is to cultivate a profound, almost surgical discernment, a capacity to recognize this pattern of the adult toddler, not necessarily to cure him, for that is a task of Herculean, perhaps impossible proportions, but to understand him, and in understanding, to protect your own spirit from the inevitable fallout of his refusal to grow. The illumination offered here is a shield. Once you recognize the signature of the infantile will masquerading in an adult form, its insatiable egoism, its flight from responsibility, its manipulative charm, its intolerance of frustration, you are no longer an unwitting participant in its drama. You can begin to disengage from the futile hope of reasoning with an ungoverned force, of expecting reciprocity from a selfhood that barely acknowledges the existence of others as independent beings. This clarity, though perhaps tinged with sadness, is profoundly liberating. Developing this Schopenhauerian insight means learning to set boundaries that are not permeable to infantile demands, to withdraw your energy from the black hole of their neediness, to understand that their storms are not yours to calm. It is to realize that true compassion for yourself, and even in a detached way for them, lies not in enabling their perpetual childhood, but in refusing to be consumed by it. This wisdom is not about hardening your heart, but about fortifying your own center, preserving your peace in a world where such figures inevitably exist. This heightened perception, this ability to see beyond the performance to the underlying mechanics of a will that has refused to mature, is the true gift of this exploration. It is not a promise of changing them, but a pathway to navigating your interactions with them and with the world at large, with greater wisdom, less frustration, and a deeper, more resilient understanding of the human condition in all its perplexing and sometimes tragic complexity. You become not a victim of their arrested development, but a discerning observer, capable of choosing a wiser, more self-protective course. And so, we draw the veil, not on a solution easily grasped, but on a more profound, perhaps unsettling comprehension of that curious and often troubling figure, the man who refuses to outgrow the nursery of his own will. The echoes of this Schopenhauerian exploration are intended to linger, transforming the bewilderment you may have felt into a sharper, more discerning gaze, allowing you to see not just the outward display, but the inner mechanics of a spirit tethered to an eternal, unfulfilled infancy. This journey through the labyrinth of arrested development may have stirred uncomfortable recognitions, yet within that discomfort lies the seed of a quiet power. To understand the relentless infantile will that drives the adult toddler is to begin to free yourself from the cycle of frustration and fruitless expectation. No longer must you take personally the fallout of a battle that is not truly with you, but with the very nature of reality itself, a reality they refuse to embrace. A certain melancholy wisdom, perhaps, but wisdom nonetheless. Carry this thought with you. Let it settle into the marrow of your understanding. The heaviest chains are often those we refuse to outgrow. True lightness comes not from evading life's burdens, but from learning to carry them with the strength of a spirit that has dared to mature. The man who remains a child in his soul, for all his demands for freedom and pleasure, is perhaps the least free of all, a prisoner of appetites that can never bring lasting peace, forever chasing a phantom of satisfaction in a world he refuses to truly meet. With this lens, you're now invited to walk through the world with newly opened eyes, not with cynicism, but with a profound protective discernment. The patterns of the adult toddler, once so mystifying or infuriating, can now be seen with a measure of detachment, allowing you to navigate your interactions with greater clarity, preserving your own energy, your own peace, from the endless demands of an unblossomed will. This is not about changing them, it is about understanding, and through understanding, choosing your own response with wisdom. If this exploration into the shadows of human nature, guided by Schopenhauer's unflinching gaze, has resonated with you, if you feel a deeper understanding stirring, then this conversation need not end here. Subscribe and continue this journey with us into the complex heart of what it means to be human. Share your own reflections or recognitions in the comments below. Your voice adds to a chorus of awareness. And if you know someone who might find solace or insight in these words, share this understanding. For in illuminating these truths for others, we all walk a clearer path.